If you have ever been praised for being nice, easygoing, or the one who never makes waves, then this episode is for you. Because today I'm going to be talking about why that very conditioning, that polished perfectionism, and constant peacekeeping is actually blocking your ability to manifest what you deeply desire. So I want to begin by talking about the nice girl trap, because many of us were taught from a very young age that being nice is the golden ticket to being liked, accepted, and safe. Let me know in the comments if you feel what I'm saying. So we understood from the way that we were treated, from the responses that the adults that were caring for us gave us, that when we are nice, when we do what we're told, when we never go against, like the expectations of others, when we cave in to every single demand or expectation, that we're going to get a pat on the back for that or told, well done, you're a good girl. So what do? We become the caretakers, the high achievers, the ones who could read a room in 2 seconds and just literally fit into it. Let me know in the comments if you feel that. If you know immediately when you walk through a door how people are feeling, especially those close to you. Here's the truth that no one tells you. This is something that is just not discussed. Being nice is often a trauma response dressed as virtue. And that's what we're told. It's nice to be nice. Yeah, it is nice to be nice if people are also being nice to you. But are we really going to always be nice when the situation doesn't call for it, and when becoming our higher selves, nice isn't right in that situation? When your energy is being poured into managing others' emotions, reactions to things, when you're staying small to avoid rejection, or just because you feel like you're being judged for being your best self, or saying yes to things when your body is literally screaming no, 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 what you're doing here is you are leaking power. Your energy is being drained from you. You're manifesting from suppression, not truth. Okay? We have that strength within us. We have that power. We have that life force. But you may feel in your chest right now, you may feel it's being squashed. You may feel you might feel like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. Everything looks perfection. You look so put together, but you still feel like you can't breathe. And this is why. Because you have been trained to be a nice girl. You have been trained to not say what you feel. You have been trained to essentially pacify and just blend in with the conversation, not say anything that might make waves. And this is what I want to speak about today. So how does it actually affect manifestation? Manifestation isn't just about what you want. It's about who you're being as you move through your life. And this is the thing that everyone seems to miss. When we look at all the pop culture books and references to manifestation, it's all about vision boards. We'll create a vision board. We'll write down our affirmations. We'll keep visualizing it. But when you're actually performing niceness all the time, instead of embodying truth, what your frequency says is, I'm not safe to be seen. I'm not safe to be heard or take up space. And guess what? Another thing is that when you're constantly being nice and you feel like you're just having to be as nice as you can be, you're trying to put it on. Have you ever been in a situation where you feel like you're doing everything you can to stay nice? You're forcing it. You're like, oh, right, I'm just going to try and get through this. I'm going to be as nice as I can, and that's it. That is unauthentic. Have you ever realized that? Have you ever thought about that for a second? There will come a tipping point where you feel that pressure building up inside you. You feel that resistance. And by the way, with family members who maybe you're used to mollycoddling and doing whatever they say and pacifying to keep the peace, if you're used to that and you've got this boiling up inside you, you're like, oh, I can't handle this anymore. That's not the time to be nice. Why? Because the higher you go in the vibrational scale, the more authentic and true to you that you are. I'm not saying be mean and nasty ever, because that also would lower your vibrational tone, your resonance. But it's about speaking your truth. It's about being who you are. And it's safe to do that because you're an adult. And trust me, I know how difficult it can be to walk into situations where you're almost like pulled back into the totally unevolved version of you. It can feel like you're transported back in a second to the version of you that had to be quiet, had to do as they were told, had to do this, have to put on a nice face. Even it could be in the corporate situation. You feel like, you may have had one bad experience when you were younger. Maybe you were like an intern or a junior or something, and you feel like every time you're in this scenario, you can't say how you feel. You can't be the one to actually raise your voice. You can't be the one to put in your opinion on maybe things that really matter, discussions that are happening. You feel like you can't do that because you're being taken back to that previous version of you who was really badly damaged by it, like scolded, or even worse than that. But what you need to understand is there are times to be nice. There are times to be sweet, lovely. When you feel that, you won't have to put that on. When you are embodying your best self, when you are your highest version of yourself, when you're waking up every day and you're going about your business and you are living in your aligned being, you're living that out, then you don't have to try to be nice. And how do you get to that point? Well, that's not really the purpose of this video, but you get to that point by making sure that every decision you make is in alignment with your higher self. And that's pretty much it. So if your higher self inside you is like screaming out, you need to say something here, you do need to do that. That is really essential now for you. And I want you to feel safe to do so. I want you to let me in the comments if anything that I'm saying here has resonated with you, because it's important to actually acknowledge that. And you may never in your life have acknowledged that before. But life responds to that when you're basically just not being your authentic self. You could say, well, what's the opposite of authentic? Inauthentic. What's another word for that? Fake. When you're being fake nice, life responds to that. Beautiful. You're going to attract misaligned opportunities. You're going to attract emotional exhaustion, because that's just a byproduct of dimming your light force and squashing it. And when it's leaking out constantly, you are going to be emotionally exhausted. You might have just confused that from being exhausted and tired, but it's emotional exhaustion. Surface level success, maybe, in your life that doesn't feel fulfilling. Well, why is that? Because it's not authentic to you, because you haven't been being authentic and showing up that way in your life. And do you know what? It's not your fault, because we are trained from a very young age to be nice, to share, to be quiet, to sit down. You have to raise your hand to go to the toilet. If you're hungry, you need to wait. It's like the most basic human needs we have to put to the side to make sure that we align with the systems that we are immersed into. So we see that as normal, but it's not normal. There's nothing godly about that. Fake nice Performing niceness is the one thing that's going to pull you back from achieving every single thing your heart desires. Because when you finally manage to be able to do this, a whole world of new opportunities open up for you, because you're no longer excusing yourself. You're no longer shrinking. You're no longer staying small. You're no longer accepting anything but the very best around about you. So, here's what to do instead, aka the real messy, nuanced work. I'm going to go through some examples that can help you to really apply this to your life. So, this isn't about cutting everyone off and moving to Bali. This is about energetic truth. It's about real life embodiment. Let me just share something with you from a client that I worked with recently. And this is a personal story that she has agreed to share. It's not going to be something that I'm going to use any names for though. So basically, she showed up to a family party with her eldest child. Okay, now her eldest son, he is 7. Okay, so still a little bit past his bedtime. It's going to be a little bit later than usual. It's going to be a long drive, a few hours, but she wanted to make an effort. Now, she was the mama, her baby was at home, and she'd made plans with her husband to do the bedtime routine and all of that. Why was that? Because it was too late. It was just going to be too late for him. And her opinion is that it's very important for a baby not to be, you know, like the term handbag baby. You don't just pop them in your handbag and bring them along and they behave themselves. The reason why they don't behave themselves, the reason why they do cry at night, is because they're tired, they're out of energy, and they need to be rested and settled. Now, I absolutely 100% agree with her. When it comes to me, I am like the lioness mama. So I totally get this. So she let them know beforehand, listen, it's just going to be me and my son that's coming along. We're going to be having a lovely time. Is there anything we can do? And the minute she responded, it was like, oh, why can't so-and-so come? And it's like, because of the routine, because it's so late. But obviously you can't change an entire party to suit somebody. So it's like, okay, fine. So she showed up. They made the effort. They got there. They wanted to show face. Now, I'm also going to add that my client, their siblings did not show up. Okay? Why was that? Because they don't want to be put in the situation that they have been put in 100 times before. They basically did not attend and they did not show up because of their own boundaries. So that happened, and she did show up. So she showed up, brought her son, and the moment she got there, she got berated for not bringing the baby. I've had similar things happen to me in the past. No one had reached out ahead of time to discuss the schedule. The host had the whole day free. People chose not to adjust anything. But still, she was blamed. Why? Why is that? Why, instead of acknowledging someone who's made an effort for you, would they decide to, instead of saying, hello, hi, how are you, lovely to see you, would you berate them for actually coming and making an effort when it wasn't an easy thing for her to do anyway? Why? Because she doesn't want involved in the drama. And why was that? Well, because she's always been the nice girl. She has always been the one to keep the peace. She's always been the one to just allow all of the, I don't know how to say this, always been the one to just pander to people's requests to make them feel better. And the point is that this client of mine, she shows up in her light, in her boundaries. And that can be very triggering to some people, especially people who their whole lives perhaps have never had boundaries, or they have only ever exerted boundaries on others and not had to keep them for themselves. And that light, that very self-honoring, can be very triggering to people who feel out of control. And what can happen in that situation with my client is that quite often when she's not there, comments will be made. People will carry this back to her. Comments will be made on herself and all of this. And the reason is, again, it's to try and put themselves on a pedestal. It's to show, I do everything. I am the best. I am the one that you should honor. But actually, really all my client wants is to have the most incredible time with her family. She became the scapegoat, not because she was wrong, but because she was no longer easy to manipulate. And you know what? That fallout is quite hard. For somebody who has always been, my client will say herself, she feels brainwashed. She feels like she has come away from one program and she's trying to move on to the next, but it's taking time because the feelings still remain. The emotions are still there. When you have been subject to guilt and shame your whole life in order for people to, get you to do things, it really takes time because you feel that in your heart. So what do you do instead in moments like this? Number one, you need to validate your choices. You trust the version of you that made the aligned decision, whatever decision that may be. Secondly, you refuse the bait. You don't owe emotional access to those that distort your actions. If somebody is trying very, very hard to make an example of you, the very best thing you can do is stay silent. Be in your strength and show that you're totally above arguing. Because in some situations, and I'm not talking about when people are able to actually have a conversation and a discussion in an adult way, but when some people have shown you through their actions in the past that all they want to do is to get a reaction out of you so that it really fuels some people. If they can get a reaction out of you, if they can get you to be triggered in any way, get you to protest, get you to justify your actions, then they found their way into you. They found their way to get to you. And we don't want to do that. That is you giving away your power. If you can't, let me tell you, silence is very powerful. If you can say nothing, your energy is felt. Your energy is felt. And at times it's way more powerful to say nothing, to stand up, to leave the room. You may say something. I think my client made the point that, oh, hi, hello, as in, did you not notice that we're here? I think my client said something to that effect. And then that was just ignored. So some people have a very strange way of communicating and cannot be rationalized with. But never ever over-explain yourself. Say less than necessary. If you're in a situation like that, never give away your power by entering into some strange petty argument. It's always the people who never make any effort to communicate with you. Have you ever noticed this? You will be the person who is organized. You'll be the person who is always making an effort to include other people, to reach out, to be, mannerly, all of that. And sometimes that isn't even acknowledged. But the people that don't acknowledge that, the people that don't even make an effort, for example, to give you the same in return, those are the very people who go off chit-chatting about you. And in that case, it's all about self-trust. Don't over-explain yourself. This is the real messy work. It's literally taking a step back. If you have to surround yourself with people when you feel you're having to be the nice girl, the people pleaser, the one who's just like, okay, and then you get home later that night and you're like, why did I do that? Why didn't I stand up for myself? Why didn't I say something? Self-trust is louder than justifying anything you do. Have you heard the phrase, never complain, never explain? Don't complain, do something about it, but don't ever explain yourself. There are some people that are stuck in a loop of unhappiness and all they do is complain to everyone else but the person who they could actually take the action with to make a change. And so what that action tells you is this person is not interested in having any sort of relationship with you. They're not interested in making it work. What they are interested in is talking about you as it gives them something to do. Maybe it's a distraction from their lives, or maybe it's just part of their campaign to make you look less than perfect because they see how brightly your light shines, like my client. Here's what it looks like in other areas. In friendships, it's okay to take longer to reply if you need to. If you're drained, it's okay to cancel and just give a really heartfelt explanation about why. You don't need to go and say, oh, this is why I'm doing it and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, you know what? I'm totally drained and exhausted today. Can we reschedule? And that is heartfelt and succinct enough to give you the time without having to explain any further. It's your time. It's okay to not always hold space. If you've had the most crazy day and you have to get home and you have to feed your children and you have to get the house organised for the next day and you have a million different things to do and appointments, and then your friend's phoning you, telling you all about her boyfriend that you've told her about 20 different times that he's not right for her, or you've listened to her telling you that, you've given her instructions about, okay, this is how you be in your power, and finally she's calling to tell you the same thing again. She's going to ignore all of your advice. What are you going to do in that situation? Hey beautiful, thank you for calling. I have an insane amount to do tonight. Let's catch up another day. Have you thought about what I told you last time? Here's another one. This is going to be controversial. This can happen in religion. You can interpret beliefs and you can reinterpret your beliefs that once taught self-sacrifice as the only holy path. Okay? Divinity includes you. You are a divine being. You were created in the image and likeness of God. You are divine. If you are religious, I highly respect that. And what you need to understand as well is that religion can be a very excellent way to control groups of people. You just have a think about that as well. I am a very spiritual person, but any groups, any organizations that for example, I remember I was raised Catholic, and when I was younger, I used to say, like when I was in my teens, old enough to ask these questions, I would say, I would ask I remember I would ask my parents questions about it, and it was always like, you just have to believe, you just have to have faith. And I'm like, yeah, okay, but I'm just asking a question. Like, I found it an interesting conversation. I found it really fascinating. And it was like, well, I don't actually personally feel I didn't know like the words to use back then, but I was like, I don't feel like I want to go every Sunday. I don't feel good when I'm there. I don't feel like it adds to my life. I don't feel like I gain anything, and I feel like there's a lot of things I could be doing that are better than that. And my parents would be like, well, when you live in our house, you'll do that. And it's like, yeah, I get that. I get that you want your children to be religious. I totally get it. But in the same way, that's just one way to drive your children out, isn't it? Think about it. When you live under our home, you will abide by our rules. And that's so true. And it's part of respect on behalf of the child, isn't it? But by forcing or by really making someone who's old enough to make their own choice choose whether or not, it's almost like, when you're pushed into doing something, it makes you not want to do it even more. So there are lots of good, positive, amazing things about religions, but there are also some things which makes me deeply unhappy as well. So I prefer to be spiritual. We'll not go down that rabbit hole today, but really self-sacrifice is brought into religion so much, and that's why I brought it up. Be the good girl, be the nice girl. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me, because I know this is a controversial one. Do the right thing. Well, what is the right thing? Is it the right thing for me, or is it the right thing for you? Is there not a middle ground we can come to where we both benefit and we both win? Yeah, I think so. That's how it works. But some people aren't willing to do that. Some people instead would rather guilt you into doing what they want or shame you into doing that. These are used in religion. Guilt and shame is like the two key motivators to coerce people into doing things that they feel they're not happy to do. And that's wrong. So, another example, social norms. This is a huge one. Like, in society, it's just like, it's the done thing. We are like sheep. The reason why we are like sheep, it's a survival mechanism. It's very important for us to be able to follow the herd. Have you ever seen like a situation where people just act like sheep? Well, I'm not going to bring up anything. One big, very, very big, very clear scenario came to mind there, but I will not bring that one up. Human beings are very, very prone to just going along with what everyone else says, even when their heart is screaming, no, this is wrong. Look further into this. Do your research. And even if you don't have time to do your research on something, take time, pause, think through why you're doing something. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to be loud. You're allowed to be seen, even if it makes some people feel uncomfortable. Be yourself. Be your biggest, most beautiful, most loud, most gorgeous self. I am not a big loud person. I am not. That's not who I am. I'm quite kind of reserved because I'm a thinker. But you know what? I absolutely adore it. I've always been drawn to people who are just unapologetically themselves, who maybe don't act like everyone else, who don't care if they stand out. It's always been fascinating for me to see how people, they just go along with the status quo and what they're told, but nobody really questions things. So the next time you get a feeling whereby there's a social norm, there's something happening where you're being expected to do something and not bat an eyelid, stop, think, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Do I want to do this? Do I need to do this? Or is there another way? I want to finish with a quotation here. Okay? Being kind is beautiful, but being authentic is powerful. Manifestation flows not from niceness, but from wholeness. Because when you are whole, when you're authentic, you will attract everything in the world that you were meant to receive. Because when you're authentic, you can at least walk away from any situation knowing that you were your best self. And your inner higher self loves that. Your higher self adores you when you do the right thing by her. Your inner goddess. When you do the right thing by her, you're going to get such an amplification of power in your heart, in your life force, energy. Because that's saying to you, I know who I am. I know what I'm worth. And that's what it comes down to. Authenticity. Being yourself, your highest self. So you weren't born to be palatable. You were born to be powerful. If this landed, I want you to comment below, what mask are you ready to drop today? And if, like my client that I spoke about, if you're ready to dive deeper into reclaiming your truth and you want some support to work through the hard, the messy stuff, then check out the Spark Activation. It's going to be linked below, and there's going to be tons more information on that link for you. But until next time, keep rising. I'm Mrs. Manifestation, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.